Welcome to Wake Up with Joni, the podcast where we explore what it truly means to live awake, aware, and aligned in a world that's constantly asking more of us. Here we dive into real conversations about healing, resilience, embodiment, conscious choice, and spiritual wisdom, bridging science and soul so you can navigate life with greater clarity, compassion, and courage. Each episode is an invitation to remember who you are, reconnect with your inner knowing, and choose your life on purpose. Today's conversation is a special one for me, both professionally and personally. My guest is Jack Zwissig, an innovative executive coach, senior facilitator, and keynote speaker with decades of experience helping leaders and organizations evolve from the inside out. Jack holds master's degrees in both marketing and management and has worked with an extraordinary range of organizations. He is the author of The Tao of High Performance Leadership, a powerful integration of conscious leadership and timeless wisdom and practical action. Jack and I have been friends since the 1980s, and over the years, we've traveled the world together, facilitating leadership and culture change workshops. What I appreciate most about Jack is not just his brilliance as a teacher and a strategist, but his deep care for people and his willingness to continue doing his own inner work. He embodies the truth that leadership is not about perfection. It's about presence, responsibility, and evolution. Today, we'll explore leadership through the lens of consciousness, including the 6 points of consciousness that inform Jack's work and his lived experience as a leader, mentor, and fabulous human being. So welcome, Jack.
Thanks. That's quite an introduction. I do notice that since we've known each other such a long time, you've aged much better than I have. So let's just get that out of the way right away. So
Oh, very kind of you. Very
yeah,
kind.
I would caution the observer or listener, whichever it is, that that was a very complimentary introduction, but don't expect me to be a real expert.
But you are. And part of what makes you accessible is your humility, is that humble part of you. Because I know you and I know the work you've done and I know the difference you've made. So you are a repeat guest, always a favorite with this podcast. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time. So let's talk about, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with conscious leadership, or would you like to start with what creates the conscious mind? And I have the 6 points right in front of me, so we can go through them if you want. Where do you want to start, Jack?
You can. I'd like to hear the 6 points at some point in time, but I think the best place to start for today is with that quote that I sent to you.
Mm,
One who looks outside of themselves dreams. One who looks inside themselves awakens. And I think it's a great quote. In fact, I've shared it with several people since I stumbled across it. And I think it was attributed when I saw it was attributed to Confucius, but I don't think that Confucius actually said that. I think that Confucius I think, said something like self-cultivation precedes right action in the world, which would be similar, but a little bit different. So one who looks outside themselves dreams.
mm,
One who looks inside themselves awakens. And I don't really like that, but I want to point out that there's actually a sequence that goes to this, in my opinion. If I dream without awakening, which is what most people do, what that means is I want things to be different, which I'll
mhm,
talk about in a minute. But if I dream without awakening, then my dream is hope driven. I'm not really dreaming as much as I'm hoping.
mhm.
And there's a million little things, little sayings about there is no hope and hope is not a strategy and hope this and hope that. I'm a big believer in being hopeful and optimistic, but I also see lots and lots of people who run their life based on I hope it's different. And so I think it's important to look inside first and awaken. And I'm going to ask and answer the question, awaken to what, in a few minutes. But I think it's important that I awaken first before I dream. If I dream without awakening, my dream is hope.
Hmm.
If I awaken first, then my dream is a plan.
Which actually moves into what I was thinking to ask you, which is where does action come play a part in this?
It's a huge part. So let me say it this way. Just about everybody in the world wants different results. You could stop anybody on the street, and unless they're incredibly self-righteous and just want to be argumentative, would you like to have something different? I've had people occasionally say no. Say, oh, so you don't want to win the lottery? Well, maybe. So, of course they do. So everybody wants different results, but only some people are willing to change their actions. You get back to that old saying, that old definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I wish I could tell you that I've never done that, but that would be a lie. I'm probably still doing it now without even being aware of it. So only some people are willing to change their actions. Then you go a step before action and you're going to find beliefs. And very, very few people are willing to change their beliefs. In fact, most people view our beliefs as the truth.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
in fact, that's part of what's our problem in our world right now is people are viewing their beliefs or their opinions as the truth, the light, and the way.
Are you talking about all beliefs or are you talking about core beliefs?
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Great question. That's why you get the show. That's a great question. We really never look at core beliefs. We very rarely, but we will today.
Hmm.
And but I'm talking about just beliefs. The example I used to use all the time is I grew up in California. In California, the pedestrian has the right of way. You can jaywalk and you have the right of way. Cars had better stop. Now,
Hmm.
you might get a ticket for jaywalking, but the cars have to stop. So my belief and I went to New York for the first time, and I'm on the corner of 55th and Lexington, or Lex as they call it, and it says walk. And so green light, I start walking across the street. And here come 4 lanes of taxis. Now there's really only 3 lanes there, but they've managed to fit cars 4 across by being so close to each other. And they're doing about 50 miles an hour. And I think to myself, my belief says to me, they have to stop. Now, how far will we go to be right about our beliefs? Well, at that moment, if I would have needed to be right, I would not be telling the story because I would have been dead right.
Hmm.
Did not
Hmm.
stop. I ran and learned that in New York, you go when you can make it. You don't really care what the light says because no one else cares. That's an example of belief and being right about it. But even more so, it's more common in just our relationships. How
Hmm.
far will you go to be right? Will you sleep on the couch and think I'm right and I'm cold,
Hmm.
or I'm divorced, whatever the case may be? So, how far will we go to be right? So, very, very few people are willing to look at their beliefs. You remember the old poem we used to do at Fox? It's called The Merry-Go-Round. If I always believe what I always believe, then I'll always do what I've always done. I'll always get what I've always gotten. I'll always feel what I've always felt. And I'll continue to always believe what I've always believed.
Round and round you
So,
go.
yeah, round and round you go. That's already amazing. If you can change a belief, and you can, but it takes a lot of practice and conscious effort. We used to do the fold your arms, take them apart and fold them the other way. In order to do it, you really have to pay attention and you have to practice. You can change beliefs, but there's another level, and there's very few people that do that. And the other level is what is called condition of mind. So before I talk about that, let me give an example, one of my favorite examples. We tend to look in places that we're comfortable with. So the old story, there's a drunk. It's nighttime. He's crawling around on the ground looking for something. And a cop comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And the drunk says, "I'm looking for my car keys." And I'll spare you the drunk accent. "I'm looking for my car keys." And the cop says, "Well, where'd you lose them?" And the drunk says, "On the corner of 5th and Main." And the cop says, "Well, this is the corner of 4th and Main. Why are you looking here?" And the drunk says, "Because the light's better."
Mm.
And that's what we do. I mean, we look where we're comfortable. The lights may be better, but the keys aren't there. So we look to change our actions, and that will help, but it's not enough. which is why years ago, things like Weight Watchers used to just do here's your diet, here's your food. And then they learned that they needed to deal with people's thinking. So they added programs like that because if you keep the same beliefs and you go on a diet, you might lose a little weight, but you're going to put it right back on. You drive by one ice cream store, you don't even stop and you put it all right back on.
I
So
do. Yes, that's true.
we want to look at actions, of course. Sometimes that's all you need to look at. Sometimes you need to look deeper and look at what are your beliefs. But today I want to talk about a thing that we almost never talk about. We rarely, even in the workshops that you and I used to do at Fox, we talked about this a little bit, but it's called condition of mind.
Mhm.
There is a physiology to condition of mind, but it's more a matter of my feeling and where I store things than it is action.
Okay.
There's a physiology to action. If I want to cross the street, there's a physiology to crossing the street. But there's not much condition. If you go all the way back in condition of mind, it may mean that I cross the street with fear because my condition of mind is life is dangerous. So condition of mind will show up in my physical and in my emotional, but it's not the actual action.
Okay.
Content of mine is where I change the belief, I reframe a story, I install a better thought. Condition of mind is more a lens that I see life through. Within that lens are a whole bunch of beliefs. So, defensive versus open. Some people see life through defensive lenses,
Hmm.
and we'll get to that in a little bit. Contracted versus spacious are examples of different conditions of mind. Scarcity and abundance, huge distinction. Huge distinction. People see life as scarce. I need to get things and hold on to them. And versus there's people that are tend to be giving where they think life is abundant. Love is a great example. Some people are very scarce with their love. They hold it and hold it. They don't share it with people. And then some people are like my Labrador retriever that just goes love, 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 play, play, play. And those are the ones I like hanging out with. So those are so the same, but you can have the same belief and different conditions of mind will lead to different kinds of actions. So let's say I believe I must succeed. Say that's my belief. If my condition of mind is fear driven, then I must succeed shows up for me as stressful and it's a burden and I burn out very quickly. And people do that. If, on the other hand, my condition of mind, the lens that I see is one of clarity, I must succeed, and I'm very clear about that, then I tend to be more patient. I tend to be more skill driven. I want to develop my skills in order to succeed. Whereas the person that I need to succeed in fear driven is the thought is constantly, I hope I don't fail. I hope I don't fail. I hope I don't fail. Is anyone looking? Am I going to be judged, et cetera, et cetera? The thing that I really want to talk about today is this thing called condition of mind because frankly, it's there's two parts of this. One is what I'm asserting today is that it's you're better off if you wake up, which is supports your wake up with Joni, which is why I'm being asked to talk here. And then when we get to the end, we're going to ask the question, how do I change my condition of mind? And at the risk of being your salesperson, one way to change condition of mind is buy your book.
Mm.
Well, because it's a practice book, it's a workbook.
Hmm.
It's intended to practice. I'm not going to just wake up one day and all of a sudden, boom. I mean, if you look at it, Siddhartha became Buddha. It only took him 7 years
Mm.
and lots of hallucinations. So I'd rather not go down that path. I'd rather read your book. So anyway,
Thank you.
as we look at condition of mind, there's a sequence. The question I think that needs to be asked, a couple questions are, what is a condition of mind? What are some examples? And then can it be changed? And if so, how? People used to ask me all the time in workshops, can people change? Do people really change? And the answer is yes.
Hmm.
What's the old joke? How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is one, but the light bulb really has to want to change.
I
So,
remember this.
so
Yeah, and I was told, or I don't remember where it came from, but people can't change.
right.
And I thought, oh, and this is years and years and years and years ago. And what I discovered is that is a lie. That is untrue premise. But it was a belief that I had for a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have beliefs. They have us.
Yes.
So it'd be great if I had a belief because then it'd be real easy to get rid of, but I don't. It has me. I used to try to think of examples. There's a great country western song, She Has, I Have Your Ring and Your Yearbook and all that, but she has you. And there's one line in that song that says, I have your memory, or does it have me?
Hmm.
Which really points to that. The best example I can give about whether I have a belief or not, anybody that's ever had food poisoning, you don't have food poisoning. It has you.
Your body is
You
involuntarily
It just
responding.
it says we're getting out of here, and
Yeah.
we don't care where you're aimed, where you are. Beliefs are like that. That we don't have beliefs; they have us, which is why we need to really examine them and ask ourselves: Is it working? Is this belief serving me or not? I'd like to talk about three different conditions of mind that I think are very, very prevalent with people. That I think all of them need to be addressed and changed.
Can we talk about worthiness versus
Well, that's
unworthiness?
the first one I'm going to talk about.
Okay, let's
So
do it.
there, see why you get the office with the window and the nice ceiling and all
Fireplace.
that stuff, and I just got books.
Yeah. You look
So
like a professor.
I will say a lot of those books are actually autographed by the author, so I've been blessed to that regard. One of the biggest lenses or condition of mind that I've seen over and over again, and even struggled with myself a long time ago, and it still comes up. It's not like it just vanishes. But most people operate from a place of, I need other people's approval in
Hmm.
order to feel valuable and worthwhile and loved. And you can talk all you want about where'd that come from, most likely from your childhood, where you got disapproval and you said, gee, I don't really like that. I like this approval way better. But even if you had a blessed childhood, we still interact at school and we still get people's approval or don't. So we tend to have this condition of mind that if people don't like me, I'm not valuable, I'm not worthwhile. And so we become what we used to call approval sucks that are
Hmm.
really going around looking for approval constantly. And so the other
I think,
side of that is I am worthy. So if I need people's approval, I tend to not be worthy. I tend to not be confident, which are different. To me, worthiness is like the current of a river. It's very solid and steady. I matter is a statement of worthiness. Confidence, which people go, oh, I wish I could be more confident. Well, confidence tends to be based on results.
hmm.
We tend to have a belief if I have good results, I can be confident. If I don't, then I can't. I used to say to people, go out and stop 20 people on the street and tell them, I am great, and watch what happens. Because some of them are going to say, yes, you are. But a lot of them are going to argue with you.
Hmm.
And some are just going to think you're nuts and walk away. We live in a society where that's outside comfort zone. And being confident and being worthy, people that are worthy, we tend to either revere, look at them, Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest. People that really angered people.
He was way over the top
Well,
with
yeah, 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 but he was on the right
it
path.
worked.
Yeah, well, he was on the right path, which was I'm going to see my own greatness.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about stubbornness and all that stuff, but I don't think there's a real problem with saying I matter. I may talk about an example later that where somebody that I know had something happen in their life and their lesson was I matter.
Hmm.
And before that, they didn't see in their life that they mattered. So they were constantly looking for other people's approval
Hmm.
and constantly trying to achieve results not for the joy of the journey and the destination and the excellence and all that, but for the approval that they got.
Yeah. And approval, constantly seeking approval is exhausting
Oh, it really is.
and it's fruitless and useless because they might get a little compliment here or there, but it's never going to change how they feel about themselves inside.
Well, besides, it dissipates.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Keep having
it's
more.
yeah. So I need more all the time. I remember years ago, when I was a kid, a friend of mine's parents bought a boat. They had money. We were like, wow. So they bought this big old boat to go in the Bay Area on the bay, which is a great place to sail and do boats. And so the first time they're out on this boat, and it's a 40-foot boat. I mean, it is big. And as we're going along, that one goes by that's 60 feet, and they go, God, we should really gotten a bigger boat. And I thought, geez, my boat is a rowboat when Dad and I go out duck hunting, and I have to row.
Yeah.
So I think this one's pretty good.
Mine's an inflatable kayak.
There you
I'm going to tell you a story. I don't think I've ever told this to you before, but as you may or may not know, I'm a recovering approval suck. And so in 2017, when you and I began working together, it was like being thrown into the university of own yourself, girl, because you absolutely held no quarter. You would not give me unwarranted appraisal or approval. I knew you loved me as a human. That's always been true. But you held the boundaries and the container for me to finally step into, oh my God, I do matter. And I am good at this. And just be me. It was just, we haven't talked about this, but there was a moment I can pinpoint it, and it had to do with the lighting in the room, like something so innocuous that shifted everything and shifted the trajectory of my life, to be honest with you. So thank you.
Well, what was the deal about the lighting?
Oh, it was the lighting or the sun coming in through the windows or
Oh
something.
yeah, I remember this.
And you gave
Yeah,
me shit and I gave it back. And I went, "Oh my God,
yeah, I do
I did not
remember.
die on the spot."
What's the deal here? We got this light coming in. Yeah, yeah. Well, so yeah, I'm glad to have served you that way. It wasn't a real conscious. I always held you that way as competent. And I wasn't at all surprised that when we began working together, frankly, the quality of the workshops that I was doing increased dramatically.
Mm,
And people said so. And
wow.
because not only did you take care of the logistics, but I could have you jump in and be a participant, and I could ask you an opinion, and I could ask you to give feedback. And that feedback, people would go, whoa,
Mm.
this is not just Sally sit in the back of the room and look pretty, which you did,
Oh,
but this is somebody that has something to contribute that other people didn't even see.
yeah.
So
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Well, and one more thing on that is our relationship. When it shifted into the collaboration, it was your company and I became an associate.
Yeah, people always wanted to know who are the associates.
I'm all of them. So it's very much in alignment with, we talk about law of attraction a lot on this podcast and creating your own abundance and living in that and all those things. And I said to you, I'm going to hang out my shingle. I'm going to start coaching. And you said, well, come to one of the workshops. I don't know why, but I just want you to kind of see what I'm doing right now. And I came and it was great. And we did a couple of them. And then I heard that you were traveling the world. And I said to you, just so you know, my passport's up to date. Just
Yeah,
saying.
you did. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Because I've told this story before, but you're the person. And months later, you said, were you serious? I'm like, absolutely. And that started everything. So just putting it out there without neediness or fear or whatever it was, it just came back full
Yeah.
circle and started a whole
Yeah.
new
So
life.
once you say I'm worthy of being a contribution here, law of attraction, you're going to attract. That which you resist persists. That which you dream or visualize, you can manifest. And you got to go to some great places. And you took advantage of it too. It's like I remember we went to Argentina and you stayed over and rode on the Pampas or whatever you did,
I did with the gauchos.
the gauchos. And I know in Australia you went to the top of the bridge. What did you
Yep.
do? London, you went over to Scotland,
Yep.
stayed in
And Paris.
that expansive room that was about the size of a prison cell, but it had a sink and it
That
was
was because it
stuck.
was on my dime at that point.
That's right. There you go. Fox wasn't paying for that.
Nope. That was a great chapter and really it changed my life.
Good.
All right,
So,
back to what you were saying.
yeah, so that's one of the conditions of mine. I need approval. And so at the end, we're going to talk about how do I change that? One of the biggest ones I see is I need other people's approval. And when you shift that, it really is what a colleague of mine used to call a quantum shift, which
Mm-hmm.
is really just a tiny little shift, but it is an impactful shift
Mm-hmm.
in quantum physics when it's just the tiniest thing. But it does have a big impact to get to a place of I matter and I contribute. The amount of joy that's available is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Because with approval seeking, I really almost never get joy. I can have happiness from a moment of approval, but happiness, it comes and goes. And I want to talk about another one,
Okay.
another condition of mind, which is so prevalent in our world right now. And to me, it's scary. I'm not sure where it's going to land. And I'm amazed each day at some of the things that happen in our world. And it's not just one guy, although he seems to be leading the band. It's frightening to me because there's so much stubbornness and what I would call self-righteousness. So years ago, people talked to me about righteousness. Now, I'm not talking about the Bible, a righteous person. So there's two levels of righteousness. There is righteous, in other words, a belief that there really is a right or a wrong, inherently right or wrong, which is stretching it quite a bit, which we'll talk about in a minute. But not only that, then the second level is not only is there right or wrong, but I'm right, called self-righteousness. And right now, that's what's so prevalent. I'm going to use a word that I don't use too often, but it's insidious.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seriously concerned about what's going to happen. And I am amazed. I've disciplined myself to not watching certain news programs because I get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this, right and wrong. We learn and believe, and from a baby, experts say that it takes a baby, they don't even start learning the concept of right or wrong until they're at least 6 months old. You can say the word all you want, doesn't matter to them. Now, when they get to 6 months to a year, they start to learn wrong. And we use that a lot. Yes, that's no, don't do that. That's wrong. And we use those words, and those words are really charged.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I used to once in a while in a training, I do this, I probably sound cruel, but it was really not. It worked very well. If found somebody that was so afraid of being wrong, what I would do is I would have them come to the stage with me and I'd have everybody stand up and point at them and yell, wrong, 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 wrong. It's overwhelming. It's just 200 people yelling wrong at you. And at first, they would just be devastated to have that much energy wrong making. But pretty soon they'd start laughing
Mm-hmm.
and they'd realize just a word. And I'm really doing anything wrong, but I live my life so afraid of being wrong. Right now, if you agree with me, you're right. And if you don't, you're wrong. So I want to talk about right wrong because I think it's a paradigm or a condition of mind that's damaging and hurtful. And we used to say all the time in the trainings, be 1% open. If you can just stay greater than 1% open, then you don't have to live in right wrong. And you can have connection and communication. But otherwise, you're just arguing. And so, years and years ago, I have four nephews, and one of them just idolized Uncle Jack. He's since outgrown it, but he did at the time. We were worried about him. He wanted to be just like Uncle Jack. In fact, he actually went to the same university I did. So anyway, when he was like 13 years old, he wanted to come visit Uncle Jack. And I was single and living in LA and working 80 hours a week and having the time of my life, if you want to know the truth. Working hard, playing hard. It was great. So Mickey makes a deal with his mom. They lived in Salt Lake City, and the deal was if he got certain grades, he could come visit Uncle Jack for a week. So of course he got the grades. So he comes to visit me, summer vacation. He comes to visit me and he gets off the plane and he's 6 foot tall or more. He's a big kid already and he's all slunched over. So I say to him, Mick, what's wrong? And of course, like every teenager, he says, and those of you that are listening will identify with this if you have teenagers, they say things like, nothing. In other words, I'm not telling you. So I go, come on, it's me. You can tell me. And he goes, well, okay. I always feel wrong around mom. And everything I do, it's wrong. And I can't do anything, and it's always wrong. And I start laughing. And Mickey says, Uncle Jack, I don't really see anything funny about this. I don't know why you're laughing. And I said, well, you forget, I lived with my sister for 18 years, so I know what you're talking about. So it's not new to me. And so then he said, okay. And so I said, without thinking, and some of my best stuff has been without thinking, and this would be one of them. I said, okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. For the week that you're here, we're going to operate from a place of there is no right or wrong. Besides, what one person thinks is right, another person thinks is wrong. And so is there really anything inherently true? So instead, we're going to use a lens that is, does it work or not work? So if we do something and it works, what that means is we're going to define that as it produced the result we wanted and the experience. Can't have one and not the other. You have to have both, the result and the experience. And if it does, keep doing it. And if not, do something else. And so I want you to know it's the hardest week. This is incredibly challenging to not think through the lens of right wrong. It was unbelievable. I don't think I could have done it without somebody else helping me, like pointing it out to me. I don't think I could have done it on my own. So at the end of the week, both of us, Mickey is full of confidence and he's upright, he's standing tall, and he's just happy and joyous, and life is great. And me too. And so he gets on the plane, he flies home. And this was before cell phones. And my sister calls me from the airport. So that means she had to go hunt down a payphone, get out quarters, and call me. And she says, what did you do to Mickey? Now, I hesitated, luckily, because what flashed into my mind was I had taken Mickey to a Hollywood Hills party. I knew there was going to be drugs there, but I said to him, you can't go in the back rooms. And he agreed, and he did. It's this Hollywood party and typical. And I look over at Mickey, and I've never seen him so happy. He's smiling from ear to ear. He's just out of his mind happy. And I realize that what he's looking at is there's a hot tub on the deck. And this hot tub is filled with girls. And Mickey's 13 years old. And this is the happiest moment of his entire life. He thought Uncle Jack was just the greatest human being ever. So I made him promise and never tell your mom about this. And he never has, by the way. But I thought for a moment that's what she's calling about. And I thought, but I stalled and I said, what are you talking about? She goes, well, he got off the airplane and he had a t-shirt on that had a hole in it. And I can't believe you'd let him get on the plane with a t-shirt that has a hole in it. So I started talking to him about making, yeah, you don't wear t-shirts like that. And I launched into my typical deal. And in other words, she went into mom lecture, you're wrong 105. And he turned to her and he said, it's not wrong, mom. It just doesn't work for you.
That's a perfect response.
And it was. And so she goes, what the heck? And I said, listen, you're welcome. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, now you can have a relationship with your son instead of being the boss
Mhm.
or the dictator in the whole thing. You can actually talk about things and you don't have to be, it's not always about he's wrong all the time. And they really have had a much better relationship throughout the years because it's not this dominate and control right wrong game.
Mhm.
My invitation is if you find yourself needing to be right, and if you're not needing to be right, congratulations, you're Buddha. But the thing to change there is to operate more from a lens or a condition of mind that is driven by, is this working? Are my actions working? Are my beliefs working? Is my attitude? We used to call condition of mind, where do I come from?
Mm. Mhm.
which is a good way to describe it. Where am I starting from? Because if you can make a little adjustment at your starting point, you can make a huge difference at the end.
I remember back then they would say, "What's your come from?"
Yeah,
And it would stop me in my tracks, and I'd have to look at, okay, where am I coming from? So it goes back to the lens of where we're standing in the world and how we're seeing it.
exactly. That's exactly right, because that's your starting point
Yes.
in your whole thinking, action, results, that whole sequence of things. What's your starting point? Where are you coming from? What's your condition? We spend so much time exercising and billions of dollars to get our bodies in better condition. Some of us, but some not so much. But we spend such little time on the condition of our mind.
Hmm.
And yet, isn't that the most important? There's actually a Latin phrase. It's actually two things called a priori, before and above all else. It's Latin, so it's going to a Catholic university, Jesuit university. I heard it. So a priori and condition of mind is really that a priori above all else. If
Yes.
I can make an adjustment to my condition of mind, it really changes things. Now, I want to do a personal example. And this is a good example of I'm not here pretending to be an expert because at first this was really going well and then it took a little bump in the road and now I'm recovering again. So, months and months ago, I was talking to one of the most enlightened people I know, and you know him too, John Webb. I used to do workshops with, trainings with years and years ago, and he's an unbelievable human being. He just operates in such a different place. For one thing, I hear from him 3 or 4 times a year, and he just calls me up to tell me how great I am. John, why are you calling? I just want you to know how great you are. Is something going on? So he's got no other reason other than to say you're great. And I feel so enriched at the end of a conversation with him. I go, God, I must be great. So I'm talking to him, and he ends the conversation by saying, Jack, I have the perfect wife, and I have the perfect son, the perfect daughter, and I know all of them. And I have the perfect house, and I live in the perfect area, and I have a perfect car. And he rattles off about 10 of these perfects. And I'm thinking to myself, is this a drug flashback? No, because that can't be true. All these things can't be perfect. And he didn't do drugs, so it couldn't be a drug flashback. But what I realized when I got off the phone and I really thought about this, I realized that the difference between John and others, including me, is that John truly trusts the universe. Whatever is in his life is intended, it should be there. He totally trusts it. He doesn't resist it. He doesn't want to change it in any way. It's just there it is. And yes, there may be a lesson for me, or maybe not. One way or another, it's there. So as I'm struggling with all of this and thinking about it, a friend of mine's husband died, and she asked me to do the eulogy, and I agreed to do it. I had never met him face to face, but I talked to him on the phone. He was a really enlightened guy. He was although Caucasian, he was a Hindu master. So he was way, you go through sequence, stages, and levels, and he was at the top. So he had Parkinson's disease for 28 years. And he lived with it for 28 years, and he never one time, not one time, did he ever complain about Parkinson's disease, which is very debilitating. For some people, for him, it was. He really had trouble getting around, never complained.
Hmm.
In the eulogy, I said, we ask, why do bad things happen to good people? We ask that all the time. But to him, that made no sense. There were no such things as bad things. So they were just things. And they weren't right or wrong, and they weren't good or bad, and they were just things, and they were perfect. It reminded me of one of my favorite movies, The Last Samurai, with Tom Cruise. And you can not be a Tom Cruise fan, and you should see this anyway. This is a remarkable movie. I've probably seen it 50 times, and I get something new every time. And this is an example. And I don't mind ruining it for you. Tough. So the master samurai is talking to Tom Cruise after Tom Cruise has really gone through quite a change. And they're standing by a cherry bush. And the master says to Tom Cruise, and he looks at the blossoms, the cherry blossoms, and he said, it would not be a wasted life for a person to spend their whole life searching for the perfect cherry blossom. And that's what's called Bushido. That's the samurai way, the pursuit of something perfect. Practice, practice for perfection. Not stressful, but the beauty of it. So then at the end, towards the end of the movie, just before he dies, he turns to Tom Cruise and he says, they're all perfect.
Mm.
And they are.
Hmm.
But we've got this Madison Avenue idea with perfection. If we go out front and we pick up a leaf and it's moldy and falling apart, is it perfect? And we'd say, no, it's a perfect leaf.
Hmm.
What I would say to people all the time is, you're a perfect human being. Now, that doesn't justify doing stupid things, but it does mean it doesn't do you any good to be self-critical. That's another one of those lenses. If
Hmm.
I'm self-critical, I'll get better. Well, if that were true, we'd all be perfect.
The decomposing leaf is perfect in its devolution.
That's right. Exactly. Great word.
Human
It's
beings are supposed to explore their flaws and
make mistakes and learn.
relationships. Yes.
Make
Okay.
mistakes and learn. You're standing there and a burning bush talks to you and says, I made you to be a perfect human being. I'm going to listen if it's a burning bush. I saw the movie.
Yeah. Well, we talk about we on the podcast quite a bit the fact that everything is for us, which means everything that happens is perfect because it's there for our next layer of knowing, our next evolution. And so, if you feel comfortable, would you please share the story? It starts with John Webb, it starts with that epiphany. And your mind was blown, and you called me and you said, everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. I get it. And it was a whole new level for you, Jack, which is why in the intro I said, you still work on yourself. You're still
Oh,
open.
God, there's lots to work on. During that time, several months that I really was experiencing that trust in the universe, very rarely resisted anything, experienced way more joy.
Mhm.
Life was flowing for me. I even traveled, which I've done so much travel that traveling not joyous for me much anymore. And by the way, when I went to do this guy's eulogy, I'm flying out of SFO and I get there and I'm on the plane. We're backing up. The thing is in Palm Springs and it's going to start at 1. I'm due to land at 9:45 in Palm Springs. So I've left myself quite a bit of time. I will spare you the how many 20-minute delays we had, but I keep texting Cheryl and saying, let's delay it again. It was 5 hours late.
Mm.
And everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and things you wouldn't even think could go wrong. Like we ran out of gas
Wow.
and had to go back. Not out of gas, but not enough to get there.
Yeah.
So now I get to the airport. Now I'm going to get there fairly close to the start, maybe half an hour late. And I get a lift like Uber. And I get in the car, and the guy doesn't speak a word of English. Now, in Palm Springs, you'd think that would be Spanish, which I speak.
Mm.
But no, it was Mandarin. Now, I speak a little Cantonese, but not a word of Mandarin. And I get in, and the guy's driving, and he's driving 40 miles an hour. And we're in a 55-mile zone. And now everything's going to be even later. And I say to him, could you go faster? And he turns to me and smiles. He thinks I just said, you're doing great. So I walk into this place, and they've been hearing about my journey for several hours, waiting for me to get there. And I walk in and I say, I'll just tell you that for the last 5 hours of my life, I got to live it like Daniel did.
Mm.
I got to accept, and people cried their eyes out
Mm.
because that's how he was. And you always felt accepted by him. The quote that I think is one of my favorites from the book Illusions by Richard Bach, one of my favorites, if not my favorite. The depth of my ignorance can be measured by the depth of my belief in tragedy and injustice. The depth of my ignorance can be measured by the depth of my belief in tragedy and injustice. What looks like the death of a caterpillar is really the birth of a butterfly. So the universe is not serving us injustice. It's not, don't get me wrong. I'm not asking people to take on these kind of beliefs. These are hard. And I'm not saying that I should look at somebody who's dying of cancer and saying, oh, what a joy. I'm not trying to be stupid about this. And at the same time, I realize that when I operate from a place of resistance, that I am constantly being a victim.
Hmm.
I'm constantly not liking what the world is giving me. And people will tell me all the time, I say, how many of you are a victim? I'd ask 200 people. No, 3 or 4 people raise their hand. And the rest say, no, I'm not a victim. And
Hmm.
then as you dig down, they're a victim all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't like it.
Is this the third core belief?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you had a very beautiful opportunity to face that within yourself
Right. So
in
I'm
the next
experiencing all
chapter.
this joy. I'm traveling. Everything's fine. I'm having a great time. There's a couple breakdowns, but even with little breakdowns, I'm catching myself and yep, it's all perfect. And there it is. And you can't change it by getting upset anyway. So that's going on. And all of a sudden, I get home from some travel, not that particular travel, but another travel. And my dog, the love of my life, my 10-year-old yellow lab, one of her eyes is red. I go to the vet, and the vet says, let's test for glaucoma. And she tests, and she says, no. And 2 weeks later, it's still red. I go back, and they test again, and they go, oh, she's got glaucoma, and she's blind.
Ooh.
And so at this moment in time, I'm not seeing the perfection of this.
Mm.
And I am angry. And I'm going to get to this soon. Where you're going to find out your lens is you're going to find it in your body and your emotions. So my body suddenly was tight and tense and stressful. And my emotion, I was angry and victimy and you name it, I'm angry at the vet. What do you mean? You tested it 2 weeks ago. I'm angry. And then people would say, well, it probably doesn't bother. They'd give me these platitudes. Yeah. Don't, when I'm pissed off, do not offer me a platitude. Do not.
Did I offer
No,
you any of that?
no,
No.
no. You say,
I know,
okay,
my friend.
okay, I think we have a bad connection. Bye. So, yeah. But I also realized this isn't going to work. I could feel it. We can actually now, if you want, we can jump into I've in the book, there's a whole chapter on victim and responsible. And the real issue is a victim says shit happens. A responsible person says everything that happens in my life is there because it's supposed to be, and there's something I can learn. Or more importantly, there's a lesson. Learnings are things like don't drive on the 405 freeway after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's learning. Lessons are things like I matter. As I looked at this whole thing and I asked myself, what's my lesson here?
Mm.
And really, my lesson was if I'm going to see life and trust the universe, then it can't be just the things I like.
Conditional.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Good word. It needs to be unconditional trust, which is redundant, really, because trust is unconditional. People say, I want to love unconditionally. Well, love is unconditional. That other stuff is conditionality. So there's that lab. Yeah.
Does she like
So,
her painting?
oh, she loves it and I love it. Joni, for those of you that don't know, we're not in that room, but Joni, who's a very talented artist, not like my cousin plays the violin, but for real,
Oh, thank
painting at a time that was so uplifting for me.
you. Of Honey and the golf course, your two loves.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you had Honey, and then you actually even put Angel in
Yes.
on the golf course. which
His
was my
other dog.
first lab. So I've talked about condition of mind. Take a look, go deeper than the belief. What's my coming from? Where am I coming from? It really is a matter of going deeper and deeper. I know I read a few defensive versus open, contracted versus spacious, scarcity versus abundance, victim versus responsible, fear versus curious. Those are examples of condition of mind. I'm right. There is such a thing as right. I need other people's approval, all those things. Take a look because if you want to impact your life, go back to the source. Now, awaken. Remember, we started out with look inside and awaken, and then from that, you can dream. I did give your book a plug. I think that the book is well designed for awakening to condition of mind because it's got exercises in it. It's not just somebody pontificating page after page after page. And I find that most books that I read really don't even have great content. They're mostly about who they know. What do I care? I don't care who you know. I actually looked this up. Yeah, I was very proud of myself. I went on AI and by the way, AI was very excited that I wanted to know about condition of mind and
Wow.
actually praised me. If I needed approval, it actually gave me praise for asking such a deep question of what is condition of mind.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. I actually laughed out loud. I thought, wow, if you need approval, just go on, check with AI and say, am I okay? And AI will say, oh, you're great. Don't worry. Or you could call John Webb and he'll tell you how great you are. But it talks about six things. Are those the six things that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So the first one is physiology. What's your body saying to you? Are you feeling pain? Are you having breakdowns? Even things like arthritis. We had people, I'll never forget, had arthritis for 50 years in her life, and she came and did the training, and she just about broke chairs, beating on chairs, got rid of resentment, and her arthritis went away.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I thought, and we only charge you 350 bucks. That was stupid.
That was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
that was a
So you're
long.
saying the condition of the mind, you can know where you're at, number one, by looking at what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one, and these two really go together. They're inseparable. It's one and one A. And it doesn't matter which one's one and which one's one A. And the next one is emotional residue and unresolved experience. So this is what makes Gestalt valuable for a lot of people. I have a friend who's a Gestalt trainer in China, and he's just blown away how people embrace and use when they study, really study Gestalt, how valuable it is.
Mhm.
Now, it depends. Depends on who you're dealing with. John Enright's one of the most enlightened people I've ever known in my life, and he used to be the head of Gestalt, and he said, I'm a recovering Gestalt therapist. He said it was great then, and now it's time to move on. So on one and two, I have a suggestion because I've been using it lately, and I used it with Honey, my dog,
Mhm.
because we were going to have to do. So this is an example. So she's blind in this one eye, and the vet says you have three choices. You can remove the eye and sew it shut. You can remove the eye and put in a prosthesis, which you'll then have all kinds of worries about infection and you'll have to treat it. Both of those, you have to put the dog out. She's 10 and a half years old. Not great to go under deep anesthesia at that age. I didn't like either one of those. And then the third option was what they call ablation, which is heck, I've had several ablations. And so what they do is they ablate or destroy the part of the eye that produces the swelling, and the swelling is what causes pain.
Mhm.
So that's what glaucoma is, your eyes swell. So humans, they give you drops, but for most dogs, it doesn't work. You end up having to do one of these three. So we get ready to take her in for her ablation. And before I go, I did what's called emotional freedom technique,
Mhm.
tapping.
Mhm.
So you, first of all, it's called karate chop, and you do this, and you say all the fears and all the negative things, and then you do the spots. Look it up. It's easy to find. EFT, emotional freedom technique. So I called my friend who's a master at it, and she walks me through it. And we do this whole thing. And one of the things that I never would have thought of on my own was she actually had me talk to Honey's body and
Mm,
thank the body for being well.
mm,
Now, you're pretty metaphysical at this moment in time because talking to a dog's body as if it's right there. And so we did the tapping. I take Honey in. Half an hour later, the phone rings. And it's the vet. It's the surgeon. And she says, before we did the procedure, I checked her eyes and their eye needs to be, each eye needs to be somewhere between 10 and 20 and they're swelling. And Honey was up to 48 before, and now she's at 12. So she's gone down. She said this almost never happens, but the medication worked.
mhm,
Because I want to tell you, it's really rare. And the other one's even lower. It's at a 7. So she doesn't really need the procedure unless you want to do it anyway.
mhm. That's
And I
great.
said, no, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So I stopped at the store, got some flowers, gave the vet some flowers, and I said to her, you made my day much brighter, so I hope these brighten your day. And so
Mm.
she's still talking about the flowers. She thought that was clever. But the truth is that, do I think that the EFT worked? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And then when I just went and had a procedure, I did it for myself. It's best if you have somebody that can guide you, but honest to God, you can just read this stuff online and probably do better off. So I
Well,
would strongly suggest not only reading your book and doing those practices, but adding daily, both morning and night, EFT, where you acknowledge the negative, then you choose, key word for human being, to let it go, and then you accept the law of attraction.
so you introduced me to tapping 8, 9 years ago. I went and took a certification course because I was
Oh,
so
you did?
fascinated by
Oh,
it. Yeah. It
see,
works with,
most people just declare themselves experts. They don't bother to actually learn. Go ahead.
so it works with the energy meridians.
Right,
And
exactly.
you're talking about the emotional residue of unresolved experience, which then is somatically lodged in your body. And one of
Yes,
the easiest ways to release that and the least traumatic, because you're not re-traumatizing yourself with it, is tapping.
right.
It's very powerful. And it's always, as you said, even though I feel unworthy, I deeply love and accept myself. You tap through. And I'll tell you, when I do this with clients, it's often the second set. So they'll go, they know what they're pissed at or resentful about. But when they then sometimes can't even say it, I deeply love and accept myself because you're reprogramming your
Yeah.
subconscious as well, and
Well,
then
they'll be, yes.
releasing the stuff that's being held in the body. So I'm so glad you brought that up. You can't see it on my notes here, but it says tapping. And then you went right into tapping. So we're like, yeah, telepathically connected here.
Well, so it gets to a cellular level.
Hmm.
And as this wonderful man, Fred Lerner, used to tell me, every cell has a positive and a negative. And if you can get it to release,
Mm,
you will have health.
yeah. Good man, that Fred.
Yeah, that good man. I think so too.
One of
I
our
think so.
favorite people.
Yeah.
So, number three, habits of attention. Shall we move on?
Yeah, sure. The rest of them are not nearly as significant as the first two.
Okay.
They're worth looking at, but I think once you really get going in the first two and do the tapping, you can go through the rest of them pretty fast until you get down to the core assumptions, or what Jim Jarvis used to call core beliefs, which
Hmm.
are big beliefs that have bundles and bundles of beliefs, like
Mm.
I don't deserve love, or life is difficult.
And those foundational negative core beliefs color and inform everything we say and do going
Absolutely,
forward.
absolutely.
But we can, in fact, replace them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We choose to let them go, but the universe doesn't allow a void or a vacuum. So in the trainings, we used to talk about replacing it with something. We used affirmations. So
Hmm.
I think that you in your book you have lots of things about affirmation, and because it replaces the negative thoughts that were there. And if you don't replace it with something, those negative thoughts will find they'll worm their little ways right back in there.
Yeah, yeah. The way it's set up, the book, thank you for loving the book. It means a lot to me. But there's a wisdom, then I tell a story connected to that so that people can understand what that looks like in real life. And then there are questions for people to go deeper and to really discover what is happening subconsciously. And then at the
Right.
end is the affirmation to replace what they've cleared out.
Maslow said that we're only conscious. You and I are conscious at 6% of the time,
Hmm.
and people that are like Napoleon and Alexander the Great were as high as 10. So if you're not getting down into the subconscious, you're naive and you're not going to make much impact. So you got to get down into those things because those things were formed a long time ago and they're stored cellularly.
I love that word. So you, I think now are doing meditation. Is that part of your accessing more than the 6%?
I don't do it too often. I do breathing more than meditation because
Okay,
breathing, when I am doing breathing, there is a meditation that goes with it.
good.
And Jeff Cosby did a great workshop on breathing. It was cathartic.
Yes,
In fact, it was
yes,
called
yes.
cathartic breathing. And it was cathartic. I'm sitting there breathing in and out and going, I'm hallucinating.
I benefited from that because you gifted me with his workshop. And
Yeah, that's
then,
right. I forgot.
yeah, it was a very profound experience. And then he became a guest on the podcast. If you guys want to go back and his name is Jeff Cosby, if you want to go back and listen to him. What an amazing conversation. What did I not ask you? What else did you want to say?
What I would say is awaken. I just want
Mm,
to re-emphasize that. Awaken. Spend the time that you need to awaken. Like I said, I'm back on my journey. I'm not all the way back. I'm still resisting some things, but I'm way back to that trusting the universe, not resisting.
mhm.
And what I find there is joy. And if I'm resisting the universe, about the best I ever get is neutral.
Neutral's good.
And it's all right. It's
Well,
not
it's way
joy.
better than angry, man.
Maybe, but it's not joy. And
That's true.
I don't think we were created on this earth. If you look at a little baby, they spend very little of their life neutral.
Or self-righteous.
Yeah, or any of those things.
Unworthy.
Yeah. They show up and they're real passionate about life and they're joyous. And when they're angry, but they get off it
Yeah.
because they experience it. They fully experience it. What I'm finding in the last week, 2 weeks, is I'm finding that I'm seeing the perfection more. And it's okay with me that to redefine perfection from the Madison Avenue perfect, that's the perfect blossom, which is
Mhm.
just bullshit, to it's perfect because it's there and it's in my life. And there's a lot of things that aren't in my life. And so the universe is serving that to me. John Webb, one more time, gives me a huge gift. And I'm never really sure whether he knows he's doing it or not. But
And my friend Jack Zwissig, he'll call me once a year out of the blue and just say, I just wanted you to know I'm grateful for you. You do that.
I don't.
And I love you. Are
Uh,
you working with people these days?
I do some coaching.
If they want to work with you, they need to get a hold of me and then I'll get a hold of you. How's that?
Yeah.
I have one more question. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. How do you recommend that the listeners go out and live their most alive lives?
Trust the universe and live authentically.
Short and sweet. I love it. Jack, thank you for bringing your wisdom, honesty, and heart to this conversation. You are such a treasure in my life. Thank you. For our listeners, if today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to sit with what awakening looks like in your life, not just at work or at home, but in how you show up everywhere relationships, choices, and moments of challenge. You can learn more about Jack Zwissig and his work through the Tao path of high performance leadership. That's his book. Thank you for being a part of Wake Up with Joni community. And if this conversation served you, please share it, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps these conversations to reach the people who need them most.
Can I put in
And
a plug?
yeah,
If you have kids that are somewhere between 6 and 12 years old, I wrote a children's story. If they're younger than that, they won't get it. They'll like it, but they won't get it. But they're
Yes,
at least 6. And it is called The Land of GoBacks.
it is such a great book. Thank you for reminding us.
I buy Girl Scout cookies from a former Fox person. And the youngest, Olivia, is 8. And they sent me a video to say thanks for the buying the Girl Scout cookies. And she's got the book on her lap and she holds it up and she goes, "This is my favorite book. I read
Oh,
it to all my friends." I thought, boy, that made it all worthwhile.
that right there. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
good.
great.
Good.
We'll put the link in the show notes to both books. Now it's your turn, beautiful people, to go out and live your most alive lives.